Hello folks, welcome to another episode of John's Drunk and Other Stories. In this episode we are going to be talking about Snyder Cut of Justice League, which came out last week. I had every intention of getting this review up last week and also kind of trying to catch up on other videos that I was meant to be doing. Unfortunately, I kind of got behind with myself, and yeah, so now here we are a week later. Please I hope you don't mind. Before I start on the review, I just want to ask everyone watching to please like, subscribe, share, and generally kind of check out the Instagram and Twitter. So, as I said in the introduction, Justice League, the Zack Snyder cut, or the Snyder cut, came out last week. First off, I want to say this was definitely kind of one of those things. I think it's kind of one of those almost mythical films, certainly for DC fans over the last couple of years, because people had an inclination it existed, but no one actually knew for certain, and certainly no one ever thought that Warner Brothers would actually end up releasing it. So it's kind of good on their part that they did. Obviously, you can be cynical and say, well, they were launching HBO Max, they had to have a big film to release it, and Justice League with the fan for around it was always going to be a good option. Okay, so I'm going to start right from the beginning, and there are going to be spoilers in this. I mean, it's been a week now. I think I'm allowed to spoil it. Bear in mind, I also watched it with Kara's Titbits and the Chinchillas. So we do have a kind of non-fan review as well. Yeah. Anyway, so we start right from the beginning. The film starts completely different to what we saw in the cinema version. There's no burglar on the roof. There's no weird Batman. Fighting a weird parademon, and there's certainly no false upper lip on Henry Cavill and the weird, just completely out of place sequence where Superman is talking to kids, which always bugged me as feeling just really bizarre. Instead, we start right pretty much from the end of Batman versus Superman, with Superman dying, and the world and the mother boxes being awoken to one less protector on Earth. I thought the sequence was very kind of atmospheric, because you saw you got introduced to Atlantis, you got reintroduced to Themyscira, and you also got to see the characters. You also got your first look at this version of Cyborg, which we'll come to in a moment. The music, the set, everything kind of just felt a lot more like a Zack Snyder film than the version we got in the cinema. Yeah, so literally right from the opening frames, you're thrown into a completely different film to what we were given before. I'm not entirely convinced with the aspect ratio. I think it's 185, or it looks like 4.43 when you're watching it on a TV. You do kind of ignore it when the film gets going, but certainly in these opening sequences, it might have been a better idea to reformat it to a more traditional or a more television suited aspect ratio. But again, the whole point of this was that Snyder was doing it his way, and he made sure that he got every creative decision, except a couple which again we'll come to later. All of these characters got introduced in completely different ways to how they did in the cinema version. Certainly Aquaman had a far more interesting kind of opening. The confrontation between Aquaman and Bruce Wayne is still there, but it's got different dialogue. It has a different impact, and you kind of get more of the keeping his distance version of Aquaman than what we previously seen in either the cinema version or the standalone Aquaman film. Also, I don't know what it was, but something about Affleck looked a lot more relaxed in this version, like almost as if when he was doing the reshoots for the cinema version, almost like he didn't want to be there, which obviously now from the rumours we've heard probably was true. Certainly with these scenes, the characters are given a lot more room to breathe. You get less of a hard-ass version of Aquaman and more of a just, I guess, hurt version. It's kind of, this is an Aquaman that doesn't want to be Aquaman. So it's the same story, it's the same introduction as what we saw in Justice League, but the language is different, the emphasis is different. It's more about kind of separating off from the world, and although he's still saving people, it's not the version that we saw before. We do get a choir singing Aquaman off, or singing just after Aquaman leaves the screen. I know there's people online that seem to enjoy this, but for me personally, I didn't really enjoy the choir moment. I don't know what it was. It was just something about it that kind of felt like it was padding. I felt like it could have been done maybe shorter, or a bit more, or a bit less than what we actually saw. We move on to Ben Affleck as Batman and Bruce Wayne. I feel that in this version he had a lot more humanity than what he had in either Batman vs Superman or the cinema version of Justice League. I think that the idea of Superman's sacrifice affecting him to the point where he has to bring the Justice League together is a lot more explored. He's still damaged, he's still Bruce Wayne, but he's more kind of hopeful than he was in either of the previous films, which I think is quite an interesting kind of character development for Bruce Wayne, and I'd have liked to have seen how this would have evolved if Snyder got to make any more of his films. Or again, even if Affleck had managed to make, if Affleck had stayed on and made his standalone Batman, I'd like to see how that would kind of have evolved and developed. But who knows? I guess we may see it, we may not. Certainly with the reaction to Justice League, I think Warner Brothers would be insane not to at least look at the plans again and look at what they can do, especially if the rumors are true and Affleck is willing to come back again. It might mess up the plans with Batterson, but who knows? They could do separate universes. They could do a HBO Max universe versus a cinema universe. Who knows? Who knows what they're planning, or if they're planning on anything at all. So if we move on to the Wonder Woman introduction. Now the Wonder Woman introduction with the with stopping the terrorists and the hostages is basically the same scene as what we see in the cinema version, but again it's extended. It's the motivations seem to make more sense for the terrorists. I'm not a fan of the sped up Wonder Woman shots. I don't know what it is. It's a similar issue that I had with Wonder Woman 84. If you overpower Wonder Woman, she kind of loses something. I'm not sure what it is, and it just didn't look very good. It's like I don't know. There's something about knowing what was in the first Wonder Woman film and knowing how she was in Batman vs Superman versus what we got in Justice League, where it just, I don't know, it just feels like she's slightly overpowered or slightly had her power set changed. Again, we still get to see her kind of save people. We still get to see her interact with people, and we still get to see her beat the terrorists. But again, everything. What I think one of the main things about Snyder's version of Justice League is that everything felt more important, or it felt more expanded upon. Certainly, using the 4-hour runtime, he uses the 4-hour runtime to his advantage, and it's probably his best film as well. Certainly his best film in a long time. I think by allowing the characters to breathe, certainly, getting the introductions that we get where we're given time with the characters as certainly with Barry Allen, we're given time with him as Barry Allen before seeing him as the Flash. With Cyborg, we're introduced to him. We see the argument with his father. We see elements before we see the full version of Cyborg, and we get to see a lot more of the angst and the anger, and they literally ripped the heart out of the character and just reduced him to a bit character, a bit, which was really unfair considering the great work that Ray Fisher put in as Cyborg in the version of the film that we see now. Even if you're on the fence, it's worth watching just for Ray Fisher and his ability to find the humanity beyond the special effects. I think he is definitely a revelation. I think it's a shame that we may not ever see him again as Cyborg, because I think he found humanity behind the effects, and he found a way of essentially portraying the entire character while also making it feel like he fit within the universe. And this is kind of a problem that I have with a few of the characters. We never got to really explore them in the cinema version, but when you look at this version again, Steppenwolf gets a huge boost of character. Obviously, we get Darkseid and everyone else as well, and Desaad as well. But it's and it's an issue I have with Marvel films as well. They don't give the villains a character. They just basically make them almost a cipher for the villain, a cipher for the hero. This is the opposite. This is the opposite. This is the bad guy. This is this, and that's the version of Steppenwolf that we got in the cinema version. Basically, just a big monster who wants to destroy the world by finding these mother boxes. In this version, we get to see a lot more about why he's doing it, the lengths that he goes to, his desire, his need, his want, basically, and we get to see a villain grow and expand as his motivations change, as his understanding of what the situation is changes and evolves as well. And I think it's a really interesting character. Certainly, to be able to give a villain depth like they gave to Steppenwolf in this version of the film makes it really interesting in terms of cinema villains, because it's not just I have to destroy the world because I have to destroy half the world to give peace. I have to do this. It's like I want to get home. I want to get back to my life. I want to make up for whatever Steppenwolf did in the past. And I think, again, it just gives him a lot more it makes him a lot more of a tragic hero, or tragic villain, sorry. Okay, so if we go on to what I really enjoyed about the film, I loved the special effects. I loved the look of Darkseid, Desaad, and Steppenwolf. I love the look of the I love the Batmobile. This is a version of Batmobile that I really enjoy. I really enjoyed the action sequences and the fact that, again, they were given time to breathe and they were given time to play out. I love that we got more of Ezra Miller as Flash, even though weirdly a lot of Ezra Miller's Flash did appear to survive into the Justice version. There's not a lot of new scenes. There's just variations or different takes on a scene. There's maybe one or two scenes with the Flash which is different, but they're huge. Like the first one is right towards the beginning of the film when we first introduced him, and we see him use his power to save who we now know as Iris West. We then got to see him exploring his abilities through Speed Force. We got to see him basically save the day. And it definitely set up an interesting version of Flash for his standalone movie. I'm sure Ezra Miller and everyone involved in that will be doing a very good job on the character. Wish we were still getting Billy Crudup as Henry Allen, but I guess these things happen. Let's be honest. if you're going to create a character like the Flash, you're going to use slow motion, and there's not many people that use slow motion as well as what Snyder does. He uses it with a lot more kind of restraint and control and understanding of what he's using it for than I think a lot of directors do. And I think that's kind of, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is genuinely one of Snyder's best films, because he's not doesn't feel like he's pandering to a studio system. It feels like he basically had given, it was balls to the wall. It was basically, this is the film I'm going to make, like take it or leave it. And obviously we now know that there is stuff that Warner Brothers still forced him to change, like Martian Manhunter at the end replacing Jon Stewart's Green Lantern. It's not a huge issue, but it would have been interesting to see how he had that character interact in such as. But then we'll see how he goes in a bigger way, hopefully. Snyder again is a lot more confident in this film with his visuals and with his ability with actors as well. I think he has a natural ability to render comic book scenes in film. Certainly with this, and with this he kind of creates some scenes which just feel beautiful and just feel amazing. Like there's some shots, certainly the Flash in the trailer, the Flash in the Speed Force, when you see it in the film, it's even more affecting and even more kind of visually stunning than what we saw in the trailer. He does kind of lean towards the 15 rating by throwing in a couple of F words and a bit of blood and violence, but not so much that it feels out of place or it feels like it's distracting. I think it fits with the tone, it fits with the style that he was going for, and it fits with the film in general. The only part of the film that I didn't really think fit was the nightmare sequence at the end. I'm not a fan of Jared Leto as the Joker. I just feel like the whole nightmare sequence just felt out of place and felt tacked on. Although it was interesting to see, and it was good to see Affleck and Leto together, and it kind of makes you wish that they had their own film together. I just feel like the nightmare sequence wasn't really necessary. And in terms of a couple of things as well, running time, if the film had been released in the original idea of the miniseries, I think it would have worked better. I think 4 hours is a long time to kind of make people sit there and watch it. Obviously I did it, Cara did it, and the boy Tippets did it, and the Chinchillas did it, and I know a few other people that watched it in one go. But it does feel like there are like natural end points or natural kind of pause points. Certainly after Superman is resurrected, they could have easily paused, like that could have been end of part one, or there's a couple of other points later in the film as well where it feels like it could have easily kind of been toned down or stopped and gone into and put into another episode. But again, if he had no idea whether he was going to get to finish this or what version they were going to release, so again he just threw everything at the wall, and we ended up with a really good film. I may have sounded quite negative during this review, but in the whole, I do really enjoy this film, and I recommend anyone who can watch it, because if not only to show that Snyder, if not only to see that Snyder actually had a vision from Man of Steel, from Batman versus Superman to Justice League. He knew they feel like a trilogy, and they feel a lot closer to a trilogy than some of the Marvel trilogies or some other trilogies out there, where they feel very episodic. This feels like it was a continuation of Batman versus Superman, which was a continuation of Man of Steel. And whatever your opinion on those two films, you can't deny that they fit within the same universe, and they feel like they all belong together. And now with Justice League, the Snyder Cut, it feels like we have an end point for this trilogy. I'd love to see it explored more, and I'd love to see it work. I'd love to see them kind of take it and go, okay, well, we're going to do this with it now, and we're going to do this with it now, we're going to do the individual films. But who knows what will happen. I kind of hope that they kind of give HBO Max the ability to go on and say, okay, well, we're going to do this character now, we're going to do this character, and so on and so forth. So this is a bit of a ramble. Yeah, this is a bit of a ramble, so apologies about that. But I really enjoyed Snyder Cut. I recommend anyone who wants to watch it, watch it. I'm gonna pre-order the Blu-ray as soon as I can because I want it to go into my collection, and I'm a nerd like that. If this is the last time we see if this is the last time we see this version of Superman and Batman, then I think they're going out on a high. Certainly, if this is the last version of if this is the last time we see this version of Cyborg, he definitely goes out on a high. Obviously, we know Flash is getting his own movie. We know Wonder Woman and Aquaman are due to get sequels to their standalones. Hopefully, we get to see Affleck again in the cowl, and hopefully, we get to see Henry Cavill again in the Superman suit. But only time will tell. But this is John for John's Junk and Other Stories. Please like, subscribe, and yeah, thank you for your time, guys. Bye.